7 Dark Signs God will show you when someone has bad intentions. At some point in our lives, we have all encountered people who seem to bring more darkness than light into our lives. It might be relationships filled with drama, friendships that leave us feeling drained, or even coworkers who always seem to sow confusion and discord. In those moments, we may feel lost, not knowing how to discern who truly has good intentions toward us and who is simply leading us down paths of pain and suffering. But God, in His infinite love and care, provides clear signs to help us identify these situations and protect our hearts. Throughout this video, we will explore the 7 dark signs that God shows us when someone has bad intentions. Through biblical examples and Christian teachings, we will learn to recognize these signs and seek the path of peace, wisdom, and truth that God desires for us. So, if you want to understand better how God speaks to us and learn to discern the intentions of those around you, stay with us until the end. And don't forget, if you find this content valuable, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments, like, and share the video. Copy the link and send it to your family and friends so that together we can spread the light of the gospel and help others recognize the signs God gives us for a more protected and blessed life. May God bless you abundantly. Without further ado, let's dive into our video. Sign 1: Constant Drama. One of the clearest signs that God will show you when someone has bad intentions is constant drama. If you notice that there is always drama around you, this is God's warning that you do not belong in that place. Drama can appear in all types of relationships, from romantic to professional, but when it becomes frequent, it is not healthy. Some people unconsciously crave drama, which keeps their nervous systems in a constant state of fight or flight, making them feel alive. Drama can be compared to a storm, a whirlwind that sucks up peace and harmony, leaving only chaos in its wake. A biblical example of constant drama can be found in the story of Cain and Abel. When Cain saw that God accepted Abel's offering and rejected his, he succumbed to the drama of envy and anger, creating a conflict that led to the murder of his own brother, Genesis 4:3-8. Cain's inability to deal with his emotions healthily and his desire to feed on conflict ultimately brought destruction to his own life and his family. In contrast, God teaches us to seek peace, not confusion. Additionally, constant drama is also exemplified in the confrontations between the prophet Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Elijah faced the false prophets who constantly created confusion and led the people of Israel away from God's ways. They cried out loudly, made noise, and even injured themselves in their frenzy, trying to attract the attention of their false gods. 1 Kings 18:26-29. Elijah, on the other hand, remained in peace and confidence in the Lord, showing that drama and turmoil are not characteristics of those who truly serve God. God teaches us, watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. Matthew 7:15. To escape this cycle, you must be honest with yourself, discern the signs, and seek the peace that God offers you. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. 1 Corinthians 14:33. Sign 2: Impulsive traits. When God begins to reveal impulsive traits in someone, you need to pay attention. Impulsiveness is a clear sign that someone is unstable and lacks self-control, and it can be a precursor to rash decisions that lead to painful consequences. A person who cannot control themselves in small decisions cannot be trusted with larger ones, especially those that affect your life. Consider the story of Esau, who, driven by impulsiveness, sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of lentil stew when he was hungry. Genesis 25:29-34. Esau made a rash and thoughtless decision, yielding to immediate gratification without considering the long-term consequences. His lack of self-control and impulsiveness resulted in the loss of a significant blessing, a choice he later bitterly regretted. Another example is King Saul, who acted impulsively by offering a sacrifice to God before the arrival of the prophet Samuel, disobeying divine instructions. 1 Samuel 13:8-14. In his haste and anxiety, Saul chose to act on his own rather than wait for God's timing. His impulsiveness not only demonstrated a lack of faith and patience, but also resulted in God's rejection of his reign. Saul became a classic example of how impulsiveness can lead to spiritual ruin and the loss of divine blessings. God reveals these traits in others not for us to judge or condemn, but to protect us from deeper suffering. He wants us to seek wisdom and discernment, knowing that the wise fear and shun evil, but the fool is hot-headed and reckless. Proverbs 14:16. Do not let anyone convince you they can change just because you ask them to. True change occurs when people genuinely desire it and are transformed by God from the inside out. Sign 3. Narcissistic behavior. In our relationships, there is no shortage of people who seem focused solely on themselves. These people, whether at work or in personal life, always want everything to revolve around them, displaying selfish and manipulative behaviors. They are constantly seeking validation and recognition, often at the expense of others, draining the energy and peace of those around them. The Bible clearly warns us about such behaviors in 2 Timothy 3:2. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy. A classic example of narcissism is King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who exalted himself in his pride and arrogance. He built a massive gold statue and demanded that everyone bow down to it, seeking personal glorification and worship. Daniel 3:1-6. However, God humbled Nebuchadnezzar, making him live like a wild animal until he acknowledged that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth. Daniel 4:32. Another example is the Pharisees, who always sought the best positions at banquets and the most important places in the synagogues. They made long prayers in public to be seen by others, not to please God. Matthew 23:5-7. Jesus called them whitewashed tombs. Matthew 23:27. For outwardly, they appeared righteous, but inside, they were full of hypocrisy and wickedness. This narcissistic behavior hides bad intentions and incessantly seeks self-promotion at the expense of others. If you always feel tired and drained after being around someone, perhaps God is warning you about their true intentions. The Lord calls us to be humble and loving, putting others before ourselves, as taught by Jesus. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. Matthew 20:26. Sign 4. Spirit of confusion and manipulation. Some people approach not to learn or seek the truth, but to cause confusion in your mind, making you doubt and feel directionless. They are individuals who use soft and persuasive words to distort the truth, create intrigues, and manipulate the emotions of others, sowing doubt and discord. A biblical example of this kind of spirit is found in the serpent in the Garden of Eden, who deceived Eve with deceitful words. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden"? Genesis 3:1. The serpent, by casting doubt on God's words, sowed confusion in Eve's mind, leading her to disobey God and eat the forbidden fruit. This is a clear example of how the spirit of manipulation operates, using truth in a distorted way to deceive and mislead. Another example is Haman, an official in the court of the Persian king Xerxes, who manipulated the king to decree the annihilation of all the Jews in the kingdom. Esther 3:8-11. Haman used half-truths and manipulations to achieve his selfish goals and destroy God's people. However, God gave Esther wisdom and courage to expose Haman's plot and save her people. Esther 7:3-6. God does not leave us blind. He gives us wisdom to recognize these signs of confusion and manipulation. James 1:5 encourages us, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." When you feel confusion and doubt that do not come from God, step back, pray for guidance, and trust that God will show you the right path. Sign 5. Hatred toward people from the past. Pay attention to people who always carry resentment and hatred, especially toward people from the past. This constant feeling of bitterness may indicate a dangerous tendency to focus only on themselves and exploit the kindness of others for selfish purposes. People who cannot forgive or leave the past behind are often trapped in a spiral of bitterness, which can poison their present relationships. A clear biblical example of someone who harbored hatred and resentment is Saul toward David. Saul initially appreciated David, but then developed great envy and hatred for him when he saw that God was with David and that the people loved him. 1 Samuel 18:6-9. This hatred consumed Saul to the point of pursuing David relentlessly, seeking to kill him, even though David had never harmed him. Saul's bitterness drove him away from God and led to his downfall. Another example is Cain, who felt deep hatred for his brother Abel. When God accepted Abel's offering and rejected his, Cain allowed bitterness to grow in his heart, leading him to murder Abel. Genesis 4:3-8. God warned Cain about the danger of giving in to sin, saying, "Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Genesis 4:7. Cain ignored this warning and became an example of how hatred and resentment toward the past can lead to terrible consequences. God wants you to recognize these signs of hatred and resentment to protect you from falling into situations where you will be exploited or hurt. Jesus taught us to forgive 70 times 7, demonstrating that forgiveness is essential to freeing the heart from darkness. Matthew 18:21-22. Sign 6. Negative vibes and bad energy. When you feel a heavy atmosphere upon entering a place, as if a dark cloud is covering your soul, this may be a sign that God is sending a warning. Bad vibes and negative energy are not just simple feelings, but also the presence of an evil spirit or spiritual forces that oppose God's peace and light. A biblical example is King Saul, who, after turning away from God, was tormented by an evil spirit. He felt anguished, and his state of mind was so dark that only David's music could bring him some relief. 1 Samuel 16:14-23. This is a clear example of how negative energies and evil spirits can dominate a person and create an atmosphere of despair and oppression. Another example can be found in the Gospel of Mark, when Jesus drives out an impure spirit from a man in the synagogue of Capernaum. Upon entering, the disturbing spirit immediately recognized Jesus' authority and tried to create confusion and fear. Mark 1:23-26. However, Jesus, with his presence of light and power, expelled the spirit, bringing peace to the environment. Be cautious with those who carry negative energy, for they may be controlled by dark forces. Remember that as children of God, we are called to test the spirits to see whether they are from God, 1 John 4:1, and to protect ourselves with the armor of God, Ephesians 6:10-18. Sign 7. Masks and subtle deceptions. When you feel that someone no longer seems to be as they once were, it may be the moment when God is revealing the masks that hide their true self. Many people use masks to hide their true intentions, presenting themselves as something they are not to manipulate and deceive those around them. God, in his infinite wisdom, often reveals these deceptions so that we do not become trapped in harmful relationships. A biblical example of subtle deception is Judas Iscariot, one of Jesus' disciples. For most of the time, Judas presented himself as a faithful follower, but behind this mask, he was a traitor who would betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Matthew 26:14-16. Jesus, knowing Judas's heart, still allowed him to be present until the moment of betrayal, revealing to all the true nature of Judas in the end. Another example is Ananias and Sapphira, who, when selling a field, lied about the sale's value, trying to deceive the church and the Holy Spirit, Acts 5:1-11. They used the mask of generosity and spiritual commitment, but in their hearts there was dishonesty and deceit. God exposed their lie clearly and publicly, so that everyone would see the seriousness of trying to deceive the faith community and the Spirit of God. God does not want you to be trapped in a web of deception. He will reveal the truth, sometimes through small details or unexpected events, to free you from toxic relationships. Jesus told us, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed or hidden that will not be made known." Luke 12:2. Therefore, be attentive to the signs and trust that God will guide you out of any deception and lead you to truth and light. Throughout this video, we explored the 7 dark signs that God can show us when someone has bad intentions. Each of these signs, whether constant drama, impulsive traits, narcissistic behavior, a spirit of confusion and manipulation, hatred toward the past, negative vibes, or masks and subtle deceptions, are ways through which God, in His infinite wisdom, warns us and protects us from emotional and spiritual dangers. God desires that we live in peace, discernment, and integrity, distancing ourselves from people and situations that can lead us away from His purpose for our lives. He teaches us to be vigilant, to recognize the signs He sends us, and to seek His guidance and wisdom in all circumstances. Just like the biblical examples presented, where men and women of faith faced challenges of deception, manipulation, and malice, we are also called to be prudent and to trust God to guide us through difficulties. Remember that these signs are not just warnings, but also manifestations of God's love and care for us. They are opportunities for spiritual growth and strengthening our faith, helping us to trust more in His divine guidance. God calls us to stand firm in faith, to turn away from everything that takes us away from His light, and to embrace the path of truth, forgiveness, and peace. Therefore, when you identify these signs in your life, do not ignore God's warnings. Pray for discernment, trust in His protection, and be willing to make the necessary decisions to keep your heart and soul aligned with His divine will. By doing so, you will find the peace that surpasses all understanding, and surround yourself with people who truly love and honor God. May the Lord always guide your steps, revealing the truth and leading you to a future full of hope, love, and light. And don't forget, if you found this content valuable, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments, like, and share the video. Copy the link and send it to your family and friends so that together we can spread the light of the gospel and help others recognize the signs God gives us for a more protected and blessed life. May God bless you abundantly.